Hey, and welcome to ScaleYourCode.com. My name is Christoph Limplayer, and today I'm joined by Keen Browne, who is the head of product and co-founder of a company called Bonsai. Now, this is a very interesting company, and I think you guys are still in beta, right? Or you have a private.
Yeah, we're fairly early in the process. We have users that we're inviting to come on over time.
Perfect. So you're still testing it out and making sure everything works perfectly fine. So I'm really excited for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm excited in AI overall. I think a lot of you listeners are as well, because it seems like a lot of people are moving towards that space. And so you need to stay ahead of the game and also learn a little bit about it, even if it's not your day-to-day job. Just knowing about it, knowing what it is, how it works, how companies are using it is super important. The second reason I'm so excited about this is because this is the very first in-person episode that I've done. I told you before I started, I've never done anything like this before. It's always remote. So this is going to be very interesting. And Keen, I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you in person.
Awesome. Yeah. It's weird when you meet someone online and you finally get to meet them in person. The dynamic is very different. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. But anyway, tell us a little bit more about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So, Mark and I founded this company about 3 years ago. We actually originally met in a large corporation. We met inside Microsoft back in 2003, 2004 time frame. We didn't talk to one another for about a decade, but there was a time when I was on my way back to California and I was looking for friends, and I called up Mark again and ran into him. And my friend Mark has always had an interest in AI. He studied computational neural systems at Caltech. He worked for startups like Numento before, and he sort of came to me with some really cool ideas and was looking for someone to sort of go on an adventure with him, this company, and so that's how we got started.
And you were in China before you moved to Berkeley, right?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I left Microsoft in 2007 and I moved to China. A Chinese friend and I and another American friend, we had a video game there that we built, a Chinese startup, and it was a crazy experience. I thought I would only be there for a couple years, and I was there I ended up being there for 7. Now the last 3 years I spent about half my time back in the States, but I was there for quite a while.
Awesome. And this was a VR game?
It's a virtual world game. So
not VR, virtual.
Not VR.
Okay.
So VR technology, of course, is only recently becoming sort of really practical. This was more in that Second Life time frame where
those types of games.
And so it was a cute game. It was you could log in, you got a character, you could decorate a house, kind of like The Sims, and then we had a bunch of mini games in the world, like there was a pet fighting game like Pokemon. There was like a trivia game, this kind of stuff. We made money off of virtual items.
Okay, and then you sold that company, and then you moved here?
Yeah. So we sold that company in 2011 to YY, which is a company in southern China, in Guangzhou, and there was sort of a transition period, if you will, between I met my now wife while I was abroad, and at that point in time, actually, right as the company was being sold, she had just gotten back from LA, so we'd been separated while she was at B school, and I did not want to move to southern China and everything, so I ended up going through this transition period where I was sort of leaving one company and then looking about what I wanted to do when I came back to the US. Okay,
and then you came back, fast forward to meeting back up with Mark, the co-founder, and CEO as well, right?
That's right.
And then you started Bonsai with him.
That's right.
Right. Did you have any experience in AI?
I did not.
Okay.
So Mark did, I didn't. So my background really is around things like developer tools, programming experiences, and then my time building that game.
And you told me before we got started that you had no experience in gaming or creating games or any of that. You also managed a team. Eventually that team was designing, like creating the artwork and all that. Again, you had no experience doing that.
That's right.
Then you come into Bonsai, no experience in AI at all.
That's right.
So one question I get a lot is, how do you stay ahead of the curve? Or say you want to switch to an industry where you have zero experience, whether that's AWS or whatever, you come from a Microsoft background, you transfer over to AWS. How do you get up to speed as fast as possible and while making as few mistakes as possible?
Oh my goodness. So I guess the part of that I would note is making as few mistakes as possible. I think it's kind of the opposite. I make a lot of mistakes. I try to make as many mistakes as I can that are not dangerous as quickly as possible. And it does take I mean, in my opinion, part of it has to do with, you need to be passionate about learning. You need to be curious, I think. This is really looking at other people who I think as well have done this successfully. And there's a bravery element. Like you do have to, it is risky and it is scary when you make these moves. But you just keep driving through. I mean, technologically, I am a voracious consumer of media, whether that's the web or that's video or podcasts or you name it. I love getting as much information as I can and thinking about it. Lately, I have a new daughter, and she's kind of compressed my time. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been interesting getting used to having like other stuff I also have to do, and so there's also a lot more. I become much more intent. Like before, I was kind of maybe a little more passive about learning and stuff, but now I really have to prioritize it and be like, okay, well, if I want to know this material, I have to know it now, and this is the window, and no time like the present.
So you were forced to become more efficient, whereas before you didn't have that pressure, so it was a little bit more of, I can take more my time, or
That's right.
I've got time to learn this and whatnot. Now you have to do it because
That's right.
you go home and you got to take care of the baby, so that's an entirely different story.
Exactly, and I'd like to think, or maybe I do think, that I'm just like everybody else. Like when I'm like, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow, right? It probably won't happen.
Right, and I mean, to be fair, I know that having a baby can be a drastic experience. I don't have kids yet. I plan on having some eventually, but you always hear these stories of people having kids and then it completely changes their perspective or it makes them more efficient, like in your case. I think you can also that's not the right word, I was gonna say superficially, but you can also mimic that kind of behavior by setting goals, specific goals of this is what I want to achieve, and making something that keeps you accountable, or creating this environment that keeps you accountable and makes you have to do it, because otherwise it's too easy to diverge from it. Anyway,
Absolutely.
While this is really interesting, I also want to dig deep into Bonsai as a platform, what it is, how it's built, and what you're doing with that.
Oh, great.
So get started, just explain the Bonsai platform, what it is, how it works.
So at its heart, what we're trying to do here is right now, AI technology is really trapped up in about 20,000, tens of thousands of data scientists in the world. The technology is pretty opaque to most of us. It demands an understanding of things like linear algebra, statistics, at least to understand it deeply. And one of our insights at the product level is that we believe there are people out there that would have an easier time learning and utilizing AI if what they had to learn is a programming language instead of having to learn all the mathematics. And to sort of get through that, or to create that language or that programming experience, a lot of it comes from an insight that my partner Mark had, which was that these machine learning algorithms, they're getting better and better. It's almost as if they could learn anything. But if you had that perfect algorithm that could learn anything, you'd still have to program it. And if it's learning, then the way you program it is you teach it. So at the end of the day, what we've built is this really formal way of teaching. We have a programming language where you lay out the concepts you want a computer to learn, the way you want those concepts, you want to teach those concepts, the data you're going to teach it with. If it's something like OpenAI, the game the AI is going to play in order to learn what it needs to learn. You feed that script and that formal definition of instruction along with links to those training sources to our AI engine, to our server technology, and then our server technology generates the learning parts. It generates the algorithms, it trains those algorithms, and then it hosts them as an API endpoint that you can then call from your code.
It almost sounds like you have an AI in the back end that's creating an AI in a way, kind of like, maybe not Inception, but because you're feeding it this information, and it knows what to do with that information, and it creates the AI based off of what you feed it. Is that right?
That's right. There's several techniques we use to know how to pick that algorithm. One is just heuristics, kind of like a compiler. We look at the source code and we look at the data set and its statistical distribution, and we say, well, you're training to solve this OpenAI gym problem. Well, that's a reinforcement learning task. Here's the half a dozen state-of-the-art algorithms for reinforcement learning. Let's go move in that direction to solve this problem. But the other thing we're doing is for every time we generate a model to solve a problem, we keep a table. This Inkling code with this data sample gives this model with this performance. And we build up that table, and then we can learn from that table of data. So it's like, we call that meta learning. So the system is literally learning how to learn over time.
Over time it gets better. Over time it gets more efficient.
That's right.
It can bridge those gaps faster. Interesting. What kind of tools do you use to build that kind of platform, and where do you start?
Oh, wow. So technologically, our platform is built on top of Python and C++.
Okay.
We do use several pieces of DevOps and infrastructure. We use Docker, Docker Swarm, these kinds of things. Getting started was interesting. Actually, for the first year of this company, we didn't write that much code. We spent a lot of time out with customers, understanding the kinds of models they wanted to build, understanding when models went bad, basically when they had a data science project and the data science project kind of failed. Why did it fail? What was wrong? What were the pain points in building those? And then we paper prototyped this scripting language as an approach that could possibly solve it, and we would grab random programmers off the street and basically be like, hey, can you read this code? What do you think it does? And through that we sort of honed in on both a product design and also a sort of a problem statement and a solution statement for our company. At one point in that process, we finally started to say, hey, look, we really have to start demoing this now. And so I went about taking that example code we had and writing an interpreter that could kind of run it, or at least fake run it, enough that I could put it in front of someone and they could go like, oh, that's pretty cool. Here's a streaming data system, and I have this language, and I send it to the server, and it does X, Y, Z. And once we got that far and we could kind of hone in on the message, that's the point where we were able to attract investment.
I see.
A couple $1 million worth of investment. And then I went out and looked for someone who really knows how to write an interpreter and who really understands the details of things like reinforcement learning. And then begin working with that team as a group to build the platform and bring it together.
And you're based in Berkeley, California.
We
right?
are.
Tell me this. I think every company has a lot of difficulty right now finding the right talent to hire. And I can't imagine the difficulty that you have in this space where it's really starting to take off, which means the skills gap is probably pretty big.
Yes.
How do you find that talent, especially in California, a competitive market?
It's incredibly difficult. And you know, for data scientists that are really familiar with this stuff, Google is offering comp packages that are nearly like $300,000 a year. As a startup, that's a bit difficult to stomach. I think there's a couple things we do. One is the environment you're in is small, it's tight-knit, it's very appealing to a certain kind of person. And so we're looking for people who are excited about AI and excited about that kind of atmosphere. I think our mission is also very exciting. Things like Google DeepMind and OpenAI, also incredible, also very important. But their goal is not to build a tool that makes any programmer able to use this technology. So we also have people who are very excited about the mission. But I won't lie, it's very hard. I think that Marcos on our team, who really heads up our AI efforts now, he's constantly calling people, and it's a big part of his day to reach out to folks and introduce them and bring them in and interview them and this entire body of work. So I would say the Bay Area is tough because there's lots of competition, but the competition also brings a lot of talented folks.
That's true.
So it's also good that there's a lot of flow, but it is hard to grab people out of that and get them set up and excited,
Right.
Find that excited
Right.
person. It takes time.
And I know that your co-founder did have AI experience, which probably helped finding that talent. Because I was going to ask you, with you not having that AI experience, how do you even know that you're hiring someone that's not just talking a lot of game, but can actually execute on their ability to deliver whatever you're hiring them for?
So I don't, is the honest answer. But 3 years ago, I really knew zero about AI. But now, I can program with TensorFlow. I wouldn't call myself an AI expert. I would not market myself that way. But I have an understanding. I did rely. And I would say this for anyone who's interested in a startup, it's important to find partners that are complementary. And so while I might be very passionate about programmer experiences and API design and programming language design, that's great, that's not enough. I needed someone else. And even between Mark and I, we needed somebody who knew about marketing, and that's where we hired Dave Cahill, who works with us. So, looking at a team and realizing that, hey, there's something missing here, and we should go find somebody else. That's good, that's great. I actually like this project because it requires a wide array of expertise. I do think that's risky in a startup context because you don't have a lot of resources, and so it's hard to have a big team. But at the same time, it is very interesting and fun for me because I go into work every day, and it's a new kind of problem from like a different kind of space every day. And so I get really excited about having to sort of jump around and tackle
That's
that
exciting,
kind of stuff.
yeah. And sometimes you lose that as you go to a bigger company or as you grow as a larger company. You can't wear as many hats.
That's right.
Which can have its benefits, but also its downsides sometimes.
That's right.
Because you don't have the ability to switch between different tasks and really get out of your comfort zone, which I've really enjoyed doing that as well, so I can definitely understand that. So you're a head of product, and you mentioned that you enjoy building the API experience or just the entire experience itself.
Yes.
What else do you do as head of product?
Oh my goodness. I see product management generally as consisting of sort of three core areas. Sure. One is around understanding users. One is around understanding the market and the relationship with competitors and other businesses. And the third is around understanding technology. Certainly in this space right now, the technology is complex, so there's a heavy technology component. But also, I wouldn't undersell the importance of understanding programmers and what they need. I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into having a programmer be satisfied in their tool. Mm-hmm. As a founder, I also am exposed and interact with a lot of stuff. I'm involved in the fundraising to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. I'm involved in some of the higher level strategic decisions, some of the hiring decisions. So there's a lot kind of going on. I have folks who report to me who are designers, and I have folks who report to me who are PMs. And then we all sort of as a group try to work with the programmers to make sure we're building the right product for the right person in the right market.
Awesome. Keen, thank you so much for doing this. Just to wrap up, can you tell us how, let's say somebody's listening to this, they're really excited about this, they want to join your team, how do they do that? Or even if they don't necessarily want to join your team, how do they stay on top of your releases? How do they reach out to you? That sort of thing.
Well, you should definitely visit our website at Bons.ai. That's at Bonsai. We also have jobs at Bons.ai.
Awesome. Bridget, thank you so much for doing this. She's behind the scenes there. She's helping me. If you want to jump in and say hi, no? Okay. Well, thanks for your help. The producer was supposed to fly out, Davis Engler, and he recently joined the team, so he's supposed to help me with this. Unfortunately, he got the flu, so Bridget's been helping me out, making sure that we got this right. So hopefully it turned out okay. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. Yep. Good luck.